Good morning, everybody. Thank you very, very much for joining us on this important webinar as we approach Veterans Day 2021. My name is Stephen Aquario. I'm the Executive Director of your Association of Counties. And I'd like to particularly give a shout out to our great president who cares so deeply about veterans, not just in Tioga County, but veterans across the state and the United States, our president, Marty Sauerbrei. From the chair of the Tioga County Legislature and the president of the Association of Counties. I want to thank very much everyone for joining us this morning for this webinar on the Expiration Term of Service Sponsorship Program. A lot of words there. We use ETS-SP for short. The ETS program is one very important component of NYSAC's larger initiative to serve and assist the counties as they help our veterans. Operation Green Light was launched earlier in October of 2021 and is now being adopted by the 57 counties of the state of New York, the great city of New York, as well as the great state of New York and its governor, Kathy Hochul. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Jason Skinner, the Livingston County Veteran Services Director, a veteran himself, and also serving as the president of the County Veteran Services Association. I can't thank Jason enough for his commitment to veteran services issues and promoting a better way of life for our veterans. Together, NYSAC and the County Veteran Services Association is trying to do all that we can, whenever we can, to help better serve our veterans. Today, we're joined by two outstanding public servants who've dedicated their lives to protecting our country and post-military careers to helping our veterans. Our first speaker will be Brigadier General retired Mike Eastman. Mike is the Executive Director of the ETS Sponsorship Program. I'd like to just read a few words about from his bio, or more importantly, his life. He is the last commanding general in a very large province of Afghanistan, the size of Tennessee. Mike is presently has undergone a difficult transition, as one can imagine, from on-call emergency management 24/7 in Afghanistan, managing emergency management and public administration, to what is now a new world in the civilian world, working through ETS. He most recently served as the commanding general, as I said, of Train, Advise, Assist Command South in Kandahar, Afghanistan. He advised the political, military leaders of 6 provinces, ran an international airport, transferred the country's largest coalition base with millions of pieces of equipment and extensive real property back to the Afghans. Over a 30-year military career that included 6 combat deployments. General Eastman led several major initiatives to include the creation of Army Futures Command, development of the Strategic Studies Group, which is the Army's in-house think tank, authorizing the joint warfighting concept for the Secretary of Defense, defining how our armed forces will be equipped and employed to secure the nation in future years. Additionally, Mike served as the director of the National Military Command Center, responsible for responding to crises anywhere in the world and command and control of American nuclear forces. Brigadier General Eastman holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from the United States Military Academy at West Point, a master's degree in military science from the Command and General Staff College, and a master's degree and a PhD in political science from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He served as a senior fellow at the Institute of World Politics. His articles have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Interagency Journal, and Parameters. Our next speaker after Mike is Bill Buck. Bill is the founder and chairman of the ETS Sponsorship Program, a Washington, D.C. nonprofit corporation. Bill is also an Army veteran with service on active duty in the reserves and in the Guard in Michigan, the state of Michigan. He began his military service as the Arctic Airborne Platoon leader in the great state of Alaska. His final assignment was as a defense attaché in the United States Embassy in Paris, France. Bill is a former Ranger instructor, United States Army Ranger School, and earned an expert infantryman, master parachutist, and pathfinder badges. He is a recipient of the French Order of the National Merit and a 30-year member of the Royal Canadian Military Institute. Bill holds a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the United States Military Academy. He began his civilian journey at Kidder Peabody, working his way from Wall Street into business ownership with Raquel, his wife, in the United States and Europe, with product and license sales in over 100 countries. I really want to take this time to again thank Jason Skinner, to thank General Eastman, Mr. Buck for joining us to share experience in connecting our veterans, particularly those coming out of military service, and how the counties here in the state of New York can work to implement the ETS program. If you have questions during this presentation, please type that question on the panel on the right side of your screen, and we will answer those questions in the order that we are received after the planned remarks today. Again, thank you for being with us here today. I want to give a special shout out to the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, who is also participating and on this webinar, the New York State Department of Veterans Affairs, the New York State Department of Labor, Kathy Hochul, Governor of the state of New York, and again, our county veteran services from across the state. Thank you very much. Brigadier General, the floor is yours.
Well, I'd just really like to thank everyone for attending today and for the opportunity you've allowed us to speak to you. You know, Operation Greenlight, you all know more than I about what it means for the state. I can tell you what it means as a veteran, right? It's just the recognition that it gives, the importance that it puts on service in our armed forces, the fact that you're opening your communities up to these veterans, particularly in a difficult time where we've come out of Iraq, we come out of Afghanistan, the wars have not ended particularly conclusively, which leaves a lot of veterans sort of wondering, you know, what have I done? What is it worth? What does it all mean in the long run? So really the chance to talk to you today about how we can partner together to give these new veterans, to give all veterans really a place in the community in New York that welcomes them home and lets them achieve all those things in life that they want to achieve, taps into that great talent and sees them become the citizens that they truly want to be. Before I pass it to Bill, I would just say that what we'd like to really do today is a couple things, right? We'd like to define the challenge that we see. We'd like to explain a little bit about who we are, what we do as a partner with you. We'd like to talk about what this looks like on the ground in execution, and then ultimately highlight some of the outcomes that it has both for our veterans, for your communities, and then for the state of New York. Thank you very much.
So this is Bill. I'd like to kind of qualify a couple of things real quick. I did wear my green shirt today. I hope everybody noticed that in the picture. I want to say that I am actually one of the co-founders. Colonel James Downing and Colonel Mike Lose actually preceded me in working with Colonel Joe Geraci, who is a 1998 graduate of the United States Military Academy and a licensed mental health counselor that is also a psychologist and who works at the VA. It was Joe's original work and pilot that they conducted in New York City some years ago that actually led to the creation of this organization, which is, as Steve mentioned, a Washington, D.C. nonprofit. We are not a 501c3. Our objective is to develop a system pre-transition to provide information to the counties and to the communities that actually have veterans living there. So with that, let me turn it back over to Mike, and we'll go ahead. I will one more thing, Mike. I have to say, on my resume should be that I was able to recruit Mike as the executive director. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
A decision you may come to regret. Next slide, please. So look, I'd like to start by just recognizing the challenges in front of us. And some of this, obviously, you all know more than I do. But I think it's good to frame why we're doing what we're doing and what the impacts are sort of across the board. So let's begin with our veteran population is declining. Part of that is simply the aging and the loss. You know, we're at the tail end of the World War II generation. We're starting to lose good numbers of our Korea and Vietnam veterans. So across the country, the veteran population is simply declining just based on sheer demographics. At the same time, though, some states are faring better than others. And many of the factors that lead to that are, again, out of the control of the state. You know, where veterans settled after earlier conflicts along the East Coast and in the Northeast isn't being met right now with new veterans coming out and settling there in some sense. At the same time, it's important to recognize that as we sit here today, the Department of Defense produces about 200,000 veterans a year. And we are losing an order of magnitude more of our older veterans than that. So there is going to be a decrement. But nonetheless, this has an impact in our communities, economically, across the board as the veteran population goes down. And you can see there on the chart, as you know as well as I, that New York is really on the leading edge of those folks that are suffering from that decline relative to the rest of the country. So the real question for us, though, is not necessarily how to offset that, but how to make sure that as veterans are leaving the service, they are fully informed and make a great decision about what community is right for them. And that may be New York. In many cases, it is. I can tell you from my experience at Fort Drum. We tend to find that where service members are when they leave the military has a lot to do with where they move as civilians. So we have some opportunities here. At the same time, there's a different side of this challenge, and it's the side that we come into this from more often than not, and that's no offense to national programs. I mean, I'm a product of the Department of Defense for sure, but at times they aren't as nimble or as efficient in connecting people to the services and benefits they've earned as we might like. And so our mission in this is driven by how do we put the veteran at the center of that conversation? How do we connect them to the benefits that they've earned? How do we set conditions so they make the right kind of landing into whatever community they choose? And then how do we get proactive rather than reactive? So if you imagine then, we are in the business of optimizing the veteran transition experience, even as you are in the business of setting conditions to have to attract veterans and to receive them in a way that sort of makes the whole thing come together. I think that's where our partnership overlaps. And so I'm just really excited to have the chance to talk to you a little bit today about what we do, why we do it, and how we go about our business. Next slide, please. So let's just start, and I'll spend a few minutes on this slide because I only have a few today. What is the ETS sponsorship program? I won't read this to you, but I do think there are a few things that are really important to highlight, and Bill touched on the first one. The first thing I would say is we are evidence-based. Our model is evidence-based, and it builds off of a series of evaluations that Joe Geraci and team have done over a number of years, many of them in New York. And what they have validated is that, as you may know, right, veterans today have negative outcomes up to and including suicide at much higher rates than the general age group in the population. And when you pair them with a sponsor, when they go through the transition period for the first 6 to 12 months, you can avoid many of those negative things. A veteran with a sponsor tends to do much better in terms of transitioning and employment and medical care and all the things that they want, but sometimes have trouble navigating on their own. So that's where we start. We start with, let's pair a veteran with a sponsor and facilitate this transition. Now, how do we do that? A couple things of note that sort of differentiate us and really are what led to us joining in a public-private partnership with the Department of Veterans Affairs, because we are, quite honestly, the only, or one of the very few, and there may be some more out there, but the only that I know of, proven evidence-based model in this space. We connect with service members while they're still on active duty, 6 to 12 months out. So we're establishing a relationship and enrolling them in our program with the goal of giving them time to process and understand what the transition means, to absorb the information. I got to tell you, I mean, I'm gonna veer off script a little bit here, but so when I'm the Deputy Commanding General of Fort Drum, which was a job, is sort of one of the highlights of a career, part of my portfolio was managing the transition program. And The Department of Defense doesn't do a tremendous job. There's a lot of information that is sort of presented to service members in a very condensed period of time, probably 40 or 50 forms a day. And there's just so much that they can't absorb it and make informed decisions. Many of them don't even really mentally acknowledge they're leaving the service until it's very late in the game. And that just doesn't set them up for success. So we're going to try and get in front of that. We are getting in front of that by we're reaching out a year ahead of time and connecting with them and connecting them with a sponsor to help sort of guide them through this process because they're going through a major life change. Our sponsors, the second point, are trained to a VA standard. They're not social workers. They are simply great Americans with an interest in helping our veterans. We walk them through, how do you talk to a veteran? What are some warning signs you might want to refer them to if you see this? How do you connect them to resources? It's really just based on a model that we've used in the military for decades, and for whatever reason, it didn't exist in this space. I tell folks I moved 27 times over 30 years. My wife wasn't happy about that, but it was what it was. And every time that our family moved, there was someone in the place I was going that would reach out and say, hey, we know you're coming, and how can I help you? What questions do you have? And you could ask those questions that are relevant to every family that is transitioning. They were generally, fairly mundane, but pretty important around my kitchen table. What are the schools like? What are the opportunities for my spouse to continue working? What housing market looks like and where you might recommend that we live. Those are community knowledge. That's community knowledge, and that's something that our sponsors are able to provide. And just having those conversations puts the veteran in a good place. The fact that our sponsors come from the veterans future community, one of the first things we ask them is, where do you want to live? And the breakdown on that, about 40% of them have a pretty solid answer. They know why and they know where. And about 40% don't, and then 20% are sort of on the fence. So we'll ask them, where do you want to live? And then if they know, we'll link them up with a sponsor from that community to start answering those questions and facilitate the transition. If they don't know, then we'll ask them, what do you want to do with your life? What's important to you? What are your educational goals? What are your employment goals? What is your family situation? And then we can put in front of them the information from communities across the country that best aligns with those needs. And then they'll make a better decision, and then we'll match them up with a sponsor. The fourth bullet point there, and one that I think is really relevant, is we're also getting away from the reactive wait for the DD-214 to come out before a community knows a veteran is coming. Because the information we're gathering with their consent is coming from their own lips. And we know it's accurate. They know how we're going to use it. We ask them every time before we use the information. But if a service member says, I'm going to Livingston County in 12 months, these are my needs, this is my family, this is where I'd like to live, we are absolutely then prepared to send that to Livingston and give them 6 to 12 months to set conditions for that family to arrive. It just makes the whole end-to-end transition process work. And then finally, we underpin all this, and I always give this short shrift. We have a great technology partner that has built for us a series of customized tools. I won't go through them, but the bottom line is it provides a common picture of that veteran, tailored to that veteran, to everyone that is part of this process. So the veteran develops an action plan. These are the things I want, need, desire. That's shared with the sponsor, that's shared with the community. And so everyone now knows what they're getting and what it would take for this veteran to connect and be successful. At the end of the day, at the end of all these bullet points, our model, when it's working at its best, is aligning federal programs with state programs around local communities with the veteran at the center of that discussion. A problem we see a lot is that it's not a lack of trying, and it's not a lack of resourcing. It is a lack of information transfer. And our veterans are often left to navigate the multitude of programs that advertise themselves as helping veterans in this space. The 40,000 plus veteran service organizations that are out there, without any way to gauge who's right for them, who's good, who's not as good. So we're aligning around the governmental structure based on advice and help from the community where the service members are going, so that we can bring new residents in with a successful transition, and everybody's a winner in this space. Bill, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that sounds completely in line with what we've been discussing. So please go ahead.
Okay, so next slide, please. So with that understanding of what we do, the next step is why we are here, and why this opportunity to partner with the counties of New York and the state is really such a great one for us. We really want the veteran to be connected to the community that makes sense for them. On one level, it doesn't really matter as much to me. I don't pick winners and losers. I just want to make sure that folks that are leaving the military and going into the civilian community are doing it for the right reasons. You would laugh, but most of these decisions for our younger veterans are driven by where does my family live, or where's my girlfriend or boyfriend, or where's the first job that I can pick up. And a lot of times those don't end in success because it's only a small sliver of the picture. They don't understand that the community they're going to may not be right for the family, or it may not have the right educational opportunities for the kids, or that job may not be everything that they thought it was going to be, or potentially, and we see this occasionally, the degree they want to pursue isn't even offered in regional communities. And so what they'll do is go to these places and then have to do a second sort of reassessment of either scaling down their goals or having to move again. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is connect them early and inform them to the great opportunities across New York. With Fort Drum, with West Point, with some of your reserve and guard units across the state, we know, based on our enrollment, that a very good percentage of folks serving in New York want to stay in New York. We just have to connect them with the right information early enough so they know where. It isn't necessarily always in the city. It isn't necessarily always in Watertown. There are opportunities across the state, and the question is, what are they missing because they simply don't know about them? And once we do that, once we get the counties involved, the communities involved, the state involved, this simply scales. We've seen it in other places. It scales, and it's really a thing of beauty. The second reason is we really, and this is a personal goal of ours, is we want our service members to feel while they're transitioning into the civilian community the same way they felt when they were coming into the military, the same way they felt when they were moving from post to post while they were serving in uniform, that the community cares, that there's a welcoming group there that wants to help them to get settled, to meet their goals, to be contributing to the organization, whether it's a military unit or a city or a county. And so I think there's a way we can do that. And I think this is really a great opportunity. And then finally, the technologies in terms of steps ahead. What do we offer in this partnership on the technological side? One is we're working very hard to support both the virtual relationship and the in-person relationship. As you might imagine, connecting with someone 12 months before they leave the military, you may find service members in California or Hawaii or overseas that have identified New York as where they want to go. So we have a range of virtual tools from chat, secure video, all the things you would expect on our platform that will allow the community, the sponsor, and the service member to connect. And we can work around different time zones. We can work around different work schedules, all of that to make this as easy as possible for the sponsor and the service member. We had the opportunity to highlight the resources that are available in different destination counties, and we tailor that to the service member. So for instance, a service member is interested in working in public safety, and they've designated a county or a set of counties in New York as potential landing spots for where they want to go. Well, when they log into our system, what they're seeing are opportunities from those counties, first and foremost. We have no desire to be a large sort of job listing board of random jobs. What we want to do is tailor opportunities to where folks think they might want to live, so that they fully appreciate the opportunities. Same thing for education. Some of our partners have really great GI Bill packages that service members simply don't know about, but that may inform their decision on why this is the right place. It may cost more to live in this county, for instance, but at the same time, very much offset by the benefits that the state or the city or the county has posed to accompany the education. Our service members just don't know about these things, and they're not getting it in a week of slides from the Department of Defense. So we're tailoring this to the community. The community has the opportunity here to highlight what events they would like us to socialize with the service members, so that when they log in, there's a feed of events that matter, job fairs, what have you, parades. It really doesn't matter. Whatever the community indicates to us is important that they want to highlight, that's what the service member sees, again, 6 to 12 months out. And then I've spoken a little bit about the job opportunities that we have built in as well. At the bottom of all this, in a very practical sense, it is an unfortunate fact that the first time most communities meet their veteran, because of the inefficiencies in the DD-214 process and any number of other reasons, unfortunately, the first time most veterans raise to the level of awareness of a community is when they're in the unemployment line, or when they're contemplating homelessness, or when they're in the emergency room because they don't have medical care. That doesn't mean all of them are problems. That's a relatively small percentage. Many of them don't pop up because they've navigated this themselves and they're successful, and their neighbor doesn't even know they were a veteran. But the ones that do pop up are the ones where this program absolutely benefits that transition process, and the cost avoidance, the proactive nature of what we're doing here, I think truly benefits both the service member, the new veteran, their family, and the community. And I will move to the next slide and pitch it over to Bill, if I could.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of follow the same process that Mike has been using this morning. What I'd like you to focus on this slide is the notion that we're working together cohesively around this common operating picture that the dashboards enable the service member, the sponsor, and the community integration coordinator, in this case, the county service officer, working together to bring all that to the community. The chain of government, regardless of whatever anyone may claim today, is the best organizational structure we have in this country. And so if we can enable the chain of government to work cohesively together to bring those resources and opportunities to young people into communities, which means we're supporting the communities, then we will have achieved a great thing. Certainly that's happened before in different places at different times. We're hoping to standardize that process around this technology, not unlike what we see today with people having mobile phones that perhaps 30 years ago we wouldn't have even imagined what we can do with them today. So I think the opportunity is strategically something that we can have a vision for, and tactically something that we can make happen right away. So a bit about the process that we're trying to create around the county service officer. We do train our soldiers to be good soldiers. In the same way, we can train them to become good citizens and people, because they have served, who are probably willing to serve more in their communities. So when we work together, and I should mention that we are in a public-private partnership with the Veterans Administration. So in addition to that, because of the way the military is organized, we do have a partnership with the Department of Defense and specifically with Fort Drum, in that every time that we go on to a new installation, we have an agreement with the installation commander to be there. So we're in a good position and armed with information that we hope all the counties in New York that end up participating in this program will provide us. We can be your representative into that inside opportunity to gain access to that veteran, to introduce them to their destination community sponsor and the people that are in that community that can play a role in the successful transition before transition. So you've all seen the recruiting stations all over the place. You've probably never seen a decruiting station. But I think this is your opportunity as a county, and as a county service officer, a county supporting their county service officers, and of course the state supporting the counties and the county service officers, to actually affect that opportunity and benefit to the transitioning service member and their family. We don't always talk about the spouses, but my mother would be very happy that I am, as she was married to an Army officer, and her parents were also a military family, as was my father. So this is an opportunity, I think, to engage the spouse and even think about how you might create different employment opportunities, as the county is in many cases in New York and outside of the big cities, the largest employer. So as Mike alluded to, if the county has a series of jobs or postings that they want to share, getting that information and finding a way, as I know Jason Skinner has been working hard on, to get veteran or transitioning service members the opportunities to make civil service applications, even though they're not yet residents, perhaps from Jefferson County or in Watertown, maybe while they're in the process of transitioning. And I think there is a much bigger discussion here about the things that we've seen throughout the country, whereby, especially in this time of COVID, where remote workers seem to be an attractive potential resident for many places in the country, using some of those same techniques and incentives to bring veterans to the community. We won't need to provide them a lot of Starbucks coffee, because Starbucks is a sponsor of the program, and we will provide county veteran service officers with gift cards that they can use to bring their charges into non-stigmatized environments, to talk about the things that they're experiencing in transition, and making sure that the healthy meter is on the right. So these are all things that we're concerned about, and these are things that we have integrated into our dashboards. A little bit more about the circle on the right. We're the county service officer, or the CIC, on our normal way of doing it. And I should mention that this is a unique implementation of the ETS sponsorship program that we're endeavoring to make in New York by working, not that we don't work with counties. Bexar County in Texas, San Antonio, Texas is a county government that we work with. Los Angeles County in California is a county government that we work with. But we've never made an appeal like this to the entire state. And I think there's a real opportunity here, because it allows the state Department of Veteran Services and other organizations in the state that might not necessarily be oriented on veterans. For example, in Los Angeles County, our primary partner is Health and Human Services. So it does depend on every state where we go. And because of the way that we're organizing this opportunity, I think it's going to help all the counties that ultimately become involved, because there can be a lot of cross-pollination and collaborative support not only across county lines, but from states to county and other organizations in the state government that may be interested in supporting this effort. So I think that is all I want to say about this slide, Mike, and I'm happy to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Next slide, please. And for anyone that's approaching the end of their tether, last slide as well. This will be it for us. So look, in terms of brass tacks, right? What does this actually mean to you in execution? What we've tried to do here is accurately capture from the different perspectives what we see as the outcomes of this partnership. And I'll speak as a new veteran, as a 4 weeks ago transitioning service member. These are the things that we aim to provide to the veteran. The first is all the information that we collect it with their consent. We don't sell it. They don't get spammed from us. We use it only in the ways that they have allowed us to use it, which I think is important, because that's a major turnoff for a lot of programs. And so we don't want to be there. As a veteran, what do I want? What do I get out of this? I get a coordinated transition that captures not just what job I want, not just what school I want to go to, but the comprehensive range of things that matter to me and my family. We're not perfect, but we're trying to at least acknowledge that there are any number of drivers that folks talk about around the kitchen table when they're going through this transition. The second, you get a sponsor from your community, probably the most important thing we do, because you have now someone that can just field the phone call, give you an answer based on ground truth that you're not going to get from any national website anywhere. We connect our enrollees to coaching, whether that's wellness or resumes or what have you, and make sure that they are accessing the benefits that they have earned, but oftentimes don't know how to get to, whether that's enrolling in VA healthcare or it's something else. There's so many things out there, so many opportunities that it's frankly too many, and it floods the zone, and they can't really take advantage of them other than through sheer luck of stumbling across the right program when they're doing it on their own. And finally, there's no cost to the veteran. This is free from start to finish for the veteran, which I think is important. I'm gonna go slightly off script here before I pass it back to Bill, and just say, you know, if I were to put my other hat back on, my old Army hat on, what is this? One of the things I think this really means to our partners is good information about who's coming early, because that allows the opportunity to get in front of so many negative outcomes and to set conditions for so many great outcomes. And I'll pause there and pass it back to Bill.
Just quickly, I'll say that these slides and considerably more slides are online on the link that if you don't have it already, we'll certainly provide you. And I could speak to all these blocks that are still left on this slide, but frankly, I'd rather yield time to questions. And I'd also like to hear from the county officials and the county service officers here how they feel about those other 3 blocks. What are the things that we're missing that we need to tune ourselves to as we think about this program and what it means to you and what's important to you? Because there is a large difference, let's just say a spectrum of differences between the transitioning service member and his family and what a county official is orchestrating on a daily basis with lots of other people, and veterans are just a part of that. So I'll stop there and thank you, NYSAC, for getting this set up for us today and letting us talk about our program. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And gentlemen, again, thank you very, very much. We do have a few questions before we wrap up today's session. But before I go to our questions, I want to just thank our sponsor for this very special presentation today, Veterans Onward. Veterans Onward supports the ETS sponsorship program by developing and promoting the protocol and curriculum featured to universities and vocational and trade school programs. The coursework can be offered pre-transition to secure early admissions and eligibility qualification for the GI Bill benefits. The 4-week Veterans Onward can generate credit hours that will apply to the university hosting the course. Veterans Onward is a sister not-for-profit corporation to the ETS program. And I'd like to just play a very short video regarding Veterans Onward, which is very relevant to today's session. Jeanette? Okay, we're waiting for that video to come up. A couple of questions have come in. Most importantly, how can folks proactively engage with your organization? We have lots of interest that have come in throughout today's session. How can folks proactively engage with you and your organization is the question. How can the communities get involved with you? So, Mike?
Sure. So we have done, I think, a pretty good job in terms of trying to capture the foundational documents of the web on our website, right? So that's where I would start at etssponsorship.com. And there are opportunities on there to sign up as a sponsor, to enroll as a service member. We list all of our training resources. We have a opportunity to schedule if you wanted to attend training. So all of those things are resident on the website. That's sort of the first point of entry to get a general sense of what it is we're doing. Secondarily, of course, Bill and I are happy to come and meet with organizations and talk about what the program would look like in their community. You know, I'm across the states. We're in a national rollout. We're active in 9 states now and moving to 50 with a goal of enrolling, you know, tens of thousands of service members over the next 2 years. And I've found that it almost takes that community by community engagement because the program is slightly different everywhere you go. Some are more rural, some are more urban. Some have a very much an educational focus based on where they sit. Others have a very much employment focus. So we're happy to go out and engage one-on-one with communities and answer the questions that you can't find on the website. But that's probably where I'd start. And then, you know, we're growing. We're you know, as part of this national rollout. And so we're in the midst of starting up our marketing, our campaign there as well to get the word out to help inform folks about the opportunities inherent in our program.
Okay, we have a couple of other questions here. We'll try to keep this to an hour, so we've got about 10, 15 minutes. The question is, communicating these supports seems very important to its success. This is the first I've heard of this. I will share this widely as an LVER, but is there a national push for this initiative? And the individual, Lorraine, is suggesting that she will help in any way possible to help push this nationally. Is there a national push for this program?
Yeah, there absolutely is, and it's coming from multiple levels. So first, of course, as we've already said, we are, you know, really fortunate to be in a public-private partnership with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and so they are highlighting the program through their networks. We're working very closely with the Department of Defense, and so you're seeing we are in discussions and rolling out pilots with the Department of the Army, with the Marine Corps League, with Marine for Life. We're making entry into the other services who don't, frankly, have as well developed a transition program as the Army, as our ground forces do. So it's taking a little longer to socialize the idea. At the same time, we are really working closely in developing partnerships with some of the longer established national veteran service and military service organizations, because there's overlap in what we do, but that we don't want duplication. So we're talking to the Red Cross, we're talking to the USO, we're talking to American Warrior Partner, AWP, which has really been a great partner in all of this. So it's a multi-tiered approach, but you know, to be perfectly frank, we're on the leading edge of a national rollout. And so what has been organic and probably not as well publicized as it could have been, we're now coming out sort of at the national level, even as we expand at the local level, and trying to get as many folks in here as we possibly can, expanding the tent.
One of your slides mentioned no cost to TSMV, but on the webinar today and on your website, there's no mention of costs to the mentors, no cost to counties or states. And then that's the question. What about the costs? And then secondarily, how broadly is the program being embraced by the Department of Defense? For instance, Fort Drum was mentioned a lot, and San Antonio, Texas. So I'm assuming the Air Force Base there is engaged, and the question is sort of, are all branches included?
Well, yeah, absolutely, all branches are included. I mean, we did start with the Army because that's where we all grew up. But we have people, service members from all the services that have enrolled in the program, and we certainly have sponsors from, I think we're up to 45 states right now, where we have every service representative as a veteran population. So this is an opportunity. This is a situation where we're really just coming out of the incubator, and I will say that we are at the same time being evaluated by the VA on the success of the program. So we're being evaluated in VISN 17 in Texas, and we're being evaluated primarily by the good folks in VISN 2, which happens to be where what we're talking about now in New York, for the national rollout. So there is quite a good deal of support. There is not any installation that we are not enabled to go on today. It really is a factor of manpower and actually getting the process defined clear enough so there's a standard way that we do all the things that we do. And so that's important because you want to make sure that the experience for the service member is common and that the outcomes all fall within the range of success. So that would be part of my answer. The other question that you asked, Steve, was about the cost of the program. Sponsors do not are volunteers. Community integration coordinators, on the other hand, we ask that they find a way, either because they fund them themselves or because they have partners that help fund the dashboards, do that. And then we also, and I've raised money for community integration coordinators, and I'm certainly prepared to help do that in New York. I think if you go into the slides and you explore that, you'll see a couple of different ways that we do that. Speaking very quickly, because there is information on our website about the cost of the dashboards. The dashboards are priced at $365 a year per service member, which includes not only the service member's dashboard, but also the sponsor's dashboard and the community integration coordinator's dashboard. So those dashboards all speak to each other and allow the community integration coordinator to manage the relationships with the sponsors, their relationship with the sponsors, and the sponsors to be connected and administer their relationship with the service member. Of course, the service member is driving the train here in terms of what they need and how they need it, and so that gives them a vehicle for doing that too. All these dashboards are connected to the VA and can be connected to other organizations in the community as a function of the desires of the community integration coordinator. In this case, it's the county service officer. This is really, honestly, a much deeper dive that we need to take with the counties that are interested. We provide two levels of information. One is a basic level, which you can see outlined in the slides. That's level one, what we term, and level two is the deeper depth of the data that we curate and that we develop over time to frankly understand the process that veterans have gone through, so we can use that to develop various predictive models to improve that process. So we're using the data to validate that. Small little quick commercial here. Last fall, the Hannan Act was signed off by the president, and the Hannan Act does provide, the legislation is written to provide communities with grant opportunities up to $750,000 for programs that demonstrate that they can support the transition process and keep a strong outlook for good health. And so those opportunities are coming, and a function of those opportunities is being able to measure success. So metrics are important. It doesn't matter if you made 50 phone calls if you can't demonstrate what the outcome is. And so that's why the dashboards are important, and why we can get into more detail about this with the counties that are interested in pursuing this conversation. That's it.
Okay, thank you. You've both mentioned, and maybe Jason Skinner, if he's on the line with us here. The question here is, obviously, you're getting tremendous feedback from our end that we can see of interest from the counties. We want to be the national testing ground for this program. We want to be the pilots to make this successful. The question is, the county Veteran Services Agency, are you considering them to be the quote sponsor, unquote? How do we implement this on our county level and engage with the newly separated service members is the question. So Jason, I don't know if you want to take a swing at that, but the question is, what is the role, the expectation of the role of the county-based Veteran Services Agency? And then there's a sort of a follow-up with that to integrate the work of the local veteran employment representative from the State Department of Labor. The State Department of Labor, under Governor Kathy Hochul's leadership, is also interested in integrating the local veterans employment program at the State Department of Labor with the State Department of Veterans Affairs and the county-based Veteran Services agencies. So I'll stop there. Jason, you want to take a swing at that?
So I guess for myself, best way I can say this in a nutshell is it's completely up to those who want to sign up and sign on, and that's between the ETS sponsorship program and them, and how involved they want to be. So if you're a community integration coordinator and you have that third screen or dashboard that they talk about, you're going to be able to see the people that are coming into your area, your neck of the woods, and you're going to be able to, see that a trained mentor in your area is connected. I don't believe that they will be the actual mentor sponsors in your area, but your sponsor needs to be trained by VA, and your to-be veteran is going to be connected with them. And you're just going to be seeing that happen. There may not be a whole lot into the coordinating piece, but we're not suggesting that every service officer or leaver in the state, employment office is going to be a mentor sponsor. They'll just be behind the scenes ensuring that things are going swimmingly. Part of what we can do as counties, and I've heard General Mike say this before, is we need to expand in a responsible way. We want to ensure that we have enough trained sponsors throughout New York State, depending on where they want to go. These people are coming to us, and we don't want to overpromise. So we want to ensure that all these sponsors are trained up. And that's just a function of getting the information out when these trainings are being put on by the VA, and hopefully getting those people connected with that training and then signed up to be on the other side of that dashboard. So, again, there are so many options available, and how much participation is really completely up to those people. And you'll find that the Bill Buck and Mike Eastman are extremely willing to make it work for you, no matter what your labor or volunteer hours are to you.
Okay, thank you. Question on the program itself, that there is officers that have been instrumental in establishing this and launching this and creating this. The question is, would you consider enlisted members of the services to be part of the program? Have you included them in part of the program, as the vast majority of the armed services are enlisted? The question is, what has been the role of the enlisted, and do you or would you like to have some enlisteds to be part of an advisory council for you to help better implement this?
So Mike, let me just take that real quick. So the sponsor today at Villanova University, Mike, another Mike, is a former enlisted soldier who's been quite successful in his journey to fill the position he has now with an advanced degree. We have a number of sergeant majors involved, command sergeant majors involved, and we're very interested in having people that served as enlisted soldiers involved in this process. There actually, if you peel back the surface, you'll find that there is no rank that is not been held by the people that are in all the Army, from E1 to O10, that have not, that are involved in this organization. So we absolutely, and we're coloring the spectrum too. We just don't have active duty people. We have people that have served in the reserves. We have people that have served in the National Guard, and in one case exclusively. So we do have these folks involved, and we're always welcoming more people who are interested in being involved, whatever rank they served in or whatever service they served in. So I hope I made that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would just add to that look, yes, and yes, right? We're always looking for ways to make this more inclusive. It's certainly not an officer-centric program. It just so happens that, the idea started with a group of officers and it has expanded out. But quite honestly, I would say 90 to 95% of the veterans that we help are younger enlisted folks. Although we're open to anyone that's leaving the service, it's just a different animal. My concerns as a retiring general officer look very little like the concerns of a 1 or 2 term non-commissioned officer with a young family getting out after 6 to 8 years. And that's the vast majority of the folks that we serve. And so the more we can understand that population and better serve it, the better off we are, because that is who we are helping. There are any number of programs to help, young officers that want to go to Harvard and get an MBA, and more power to them, although they probably should go to MIT if they want a good education, but nonetheless. But that's not our focus, right? Our focus is on sort of the general veteran population, which is represented largely by the enlisted population. And so we bring on as many advisors as we can to make sure that we're tooling our program to meet those needs.
Yeah,
okay,
I just want to
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, look, our real target market are the people that are underserved, which is exactly the people we're talking about. These are 20 to 26, 27-year-old young men and women who may have families, who are really off to the first big adventure of their life because they probably left very young to start their military service. And so that is exactly the market we're trying to serve, and we need people who have that perspective involved in the program. Sorry, Steve. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I want to call on Mr. Pomerantz from the New York State Department of Veterans Affairs to end our program, but I want to thank, before we go to Mr. Pomerantz, really want to thank Mike Brown from Veterans Onward. What a tremendous program and service for veterans, and I really encourage all of you who are with us here today and all of you who will be watching this webinar later to contact Michael Brown at michael.d.brown@villanova.edu. I guarantee you're going to be incredibly impressed with Mike and with Veterans Onward, and we're very grateful for their sponsorship of today. Let's go to the New York State under the leadership of Governor Kathy Hochul to conclude today's session.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Benjamin Pomerantz from the New York State Division of Veteran Services. I see a lot of familiar names here, but for those who have not met me yet, I serve as the division's Deputy Director for Program Development and Training. First off, it's a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you for NACO for putting this together. Special thanks to Jason Skinner, who is just a force of nature in getting good things done for veterans and their families, not only in his county, but among the county government and city government structures around New York State. And of course, the team from ETS SP. Couple of quick things I want to say, and I will endeavor to be as quick as a lawyer can because I am standing between you and your lunch hour, I believe. But first and foremost, Operation Greenlight. This is something that New York State is fully supportive of. You will be seeing on Veterans Day this year a number of different state landmarks lit up in green, and we encourage anyone and everyone to take part in those festivities, if you will, by getting green lights up at your house to show that level of support, okay? This is obviously the beginning of this, the ceremonial part, with a lot more concrete efforts going forward, spearheaded by Jason, with the work that he has done to put Operation Greenlight together and kind of drive that train going forward and get all the right collaborators on the table. You know, we're here together today because this makes sense. We're all, to paraphrase what you heard from the ETS team, links in that chain of government at various levels, federal, state, local, was trying to get together here to get things right in this transitional process from military service to civilian life. Special focus on ETS SP. I first came into contact with the ETS SP program March of 2020 when I began working with the Governor's Challenge to Prevent Suicide among veterans and their families. And Dr. Joe Geraci, our retired Lieutenant Colonel, who you heard mentioned earlier, is also a member of the New York delegation, as is Jason Skinner. And to me, when I first heard about ETS SP, my first thought was, okay, this is too good to be true. Because ever since I came aboard with the State Division of Veteran Services in 2013, my number one question, and frankly, my number one area of mystification, has been how come we don't know when someone comes home to New York State? How come there's not some kind of a newsflash that hits our radar saying, hey, Sergeant Snuffy is back home in Orange County or Jefferson County or Livingston County or Clinton County or wherever Sergeant Snuffy has come home to make certain that we as a state, we as county governments, we as city governments are putting together the smoothest possible glide path for Sergeant Snuffy on that transition homeward. And there's been various, as many of you already know, roadblocks to that information being shared around privacy. Even with opt-in, there were privacy roadblocks. And now finally through ETS SP, we're seeing a model put forth where that data exchange is taking place. And even more importantly, where it's taking place not at the point of exit from service, but actually before that, before the discharge takes place, before that person leaves their uniform behind for the last time. And that to me is essential. It's life-changing. It's life-saving. Dr. Geraci often refers to that 1 year after discharge as the deadly gap, where a lot of bad things can happen. Okay, I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone here. We're talking about things like unemployment, underemployment, criminal justice involvement, homelessness, suicide, all those negative things that obviously we all work to try to avoid. How do we avoid that? Through connectivity, through identifying people before they're leaving service, linking them with someone who can serve as their primary point of contact and their primary navigator and guide to help usher them through that challenging time, and to connect them with the widest possible array of resources, federal, state, county, not-for-profit, whatever they need to meet their individualized needs and to address their individualized goals and hopes in their transition home. That's the direction that I think we're going in through ETS SP. You heard today that this can be tailored in a lot of different ways depending on your individual local government's resources, interests, etc. And so the thing that I encourage you to do is individually to reach out to Bill Buck, to reach out to General Eastman, to reach out to Jason Skinner, and to me, and to say, hey, I'm interested in learning more. And that can become the entry point to that conversation about how this fits in with the spectrum of your individual county or your individual municipal government, to make certain that we're setting something in a way that works for you, but also that you're being part of the discussion so you're not being left out in some way when this goes forward. The last thing I want to mention, many counties, although not all, but many counties in New York State already have peer-to-peer programs for the veterans in their counties. The Joseph P. Dwyer program, for example, is one of the most widespread and one of the most successful. I want to make it very clear that ETS sponsorship is not coming in here as any kind of a replacement or a takeover of those existing programs. On the contrary, it's there as a force multiplier. Part of our work for the Governor's Challenge was testing this out in Nassau County and Suffolk County, where ETS sponsorship and the Joseph P. Dwyer program in those two counties joined forces and worked together, and it worked well. So that goes to say, and to reassure, hopefully, this is not a replacement of what you've already done. It's not a takeover of what you've already done. It's an add-on. It's a force multiplier. It's a way to take what you've already done and build upon it, specifically looking at that transitioning service member population to get people safely all the way home and on to the next adventure in their lives. So for those of you who do not know me, or even for those who do and have forgotten my email, I'll give you my email right now, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about this or about other things related to the State Division of Veteran Services. The email is Benjamin, BENJAMIN, .Pomerantz, POMERANCE, at veterans.ny.gov. Benjamin.Pomerantz at veterans.ny.gov. I look forward to hearing from you and looking very much forward to seeing Operation Greenlight evolve, to see ETS SP evolve in your individual local areas, and most importantly, to seeing success in our shared mission of getting veterans and their families transitioning home, all the way home, safe, secure, and thriving in the next stage in their lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benjamin Pomerantz from the New York State Division of Veteran Services. There are many questions here that we were not able to get to. I'll just reference the CAP-TAP programs, which should be identifying returning service members, but they do not have sponsors assigned to them. And that's a flag that we will flag for the state. And unfortunately, the transition programs are not given enough importance. That's sort of the comment that was given to us here. We will work with Benjamin and with the New York State Department of Labor on those types of questions. The last thing I'll just flag out there is a question about were female service members involved in the initiative, and we just want to make sure that again that they are included and advising, and more importantly, involved with implementation. Mike Easton, Bill Buck, really want to thank you. Really grateful for everything that you have done for us. This is just the beginning, folks. At the conferences of the Statewide Association of Counties, we will be bringing this live and in person. And again, we had the contact information for Mike and Bill right on the screen right there. They are expecting your emails. They are expecting your phone calls. Please stay in touch with them, and we'll begin to get this out into the communities over the next several months. Again, thank you everyone for joining us on such an important program. Thank you. God bless the United States of America and the men and women that serve to defend it. That will conclude today's webinar, and have a good Veterans Day to all, and thank you very much for joining us.